Lamentations Chapter 5 begins with a heartfelt cry for God's mercy and intervention in the midst of the suffering and desolation of Jerusalem. The people, now in exile, call on God to remember their affliction and the devastation that has befallen them. The chapter opens with a recognition that their inheritance, once prosperous and secure, has been taken away, leaving them vulnerable and broken. The people lament how they have been deprived of basic needs, such as food and shelter, and they acknowledge the cruel oppression they face from their enemies. This opening appeal to God highlights their deep sense of loss and their desperate longing for divine restoration. The chapter continues with a description of the painful consequences of the nation's sins. The people express how their enemies have overtaken them, and they are now subjected to humiliation, slavery, and suffering. The once proud city of Jerusalem has become a place of mourning and distress. The hardships are exacerbated by the scarcity of resources, such as water and bread, and the constant fear and oppression under which the people live. The elders, who once held positions of honor, now sit in silence, while the young men and women suffer from harsh treatment. The nation's loss of dignity and status is evident as the people are left in despair. As the chapter unfolds, the people continue to reflect on the consequences of their sins and the deep anguish they feel. They are not only experiencing physical and material suffering but also spiritual disillusionment. Their situation has reached a point where they feel abandoned by God, and there is a sense of hopelessness as they plead for God's forgiveness and deliverance. The leaders of the nation, once strong and respected, are now powerless to help, and the people's social structures have collapsed. The chapter conveys a profound sense of grief, as the people recognize the depth of their transgressions and their need for God's mercy. In the final verses, the people turn to God with a mixture of lament and plea for restoration. They acknowledge that God's wrath has been poured out on them because of their sin, but they also express a desire for divine intervention. There is an urgent call for God to renew His covenant and to restore them to their former state. Despite their acknowledgement of God's justice, there remains a plea for His compassion and a return to favor. The chapter concludes with a solemn note, as the people question whether God will ever restore them, recognizing the brokenness of their situation but still holding on to the hope that God might yet bring healing and redemption to their land. Let's now read Lamentations chapter 5. Remember, O Lord, what has come upon us, consider, and behold our reproach. Our inheritance is turned to strangers, our houses to aliens. We are orphans and fatherless, our mothers are as widows. We have drunken our water for money, our wood is sold unto us. Our necks are under persecution, we labor, and have no rest. We have given the hand to the Egyptians, and to the Assyrians, to be satisfied with bread. Our fathers have sinned, and are not, and we have borne their iniquities. Servants have ruled over us, there is none that doth deliver us out of their hand. We get our bread with the peril of our lives because of the sword of the wilderness. Our skin was black like an oven because of the terrible famine. They ravished the women in Zion, and the maids in the cities of Judah. Princes are hanged up by their hand, the faces of elders were not honored. They took the young men to grind, and the children fell under the wood. The elders have ceased from the gate, the young men from their music. The joy of our heart has ceased, our dance is turned into mourning. The crown is fallen from our head, woe unto us, that we have sinned. For this our heart is faint, for these things our eyes are dim. Because of the mountain of Zion, which is desolate, the foxes walk upon it. Thou, O Lord, remainest forever, thy throne from generation to generation. Wherefore dost thou forget us forever, and forsake us so long time? Turn thou us unto thee, O Lord, and we shall be turned, renew our days as of old. But thou hast utterly rejected us, thou art very wroth against us. This ends our reading of Lamentations chapter 5.